that may decide it. The Big 12 runs through Utah, which includes BYU, or maybe Iowa State. This is Locked On Big 12.
You are Locked On Big 12, your daily podcast on the Big 12 Conference, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Sunday, everybody, and welcome to Locked On Big 12. I'm Drake Toll from America's #1 Big 12 podcast, Locked On Big 12. Thank you for making this show your first listen every single day, and it is still a happy Sunday. My voice is gone. It is like 3 o'clock in the morning at the time of recording because BYU just finished not too long ago. And if there's one thing I want to start with, it's the dominance of BYU, Utah, Iowa State, and Texas Tech. And then I kind of think everybody else is going to fall in line in this league. Now, what I will tell you right now is the most important thing that you will hear from a Big 12 podcaster, from a national analyst, from anyone who divulges about college football. In our league, and I'm going to go game by game effectively, and I'm going to show you the best wins, the worst losses of our conference. But game by game, what matters the most is Tim Allen's Santa Claus. And it may not make much sense, but the second you are the giant slayer, the second that you get to play Santa Claus, the second that you kill the man in the red suit with the long white beard, is the second you become relevant in the Big 12. Arizona State last year played Santa Claus. This season, if it's Iowa State, if it's BYU, if it's Utah, if it's Texas Tech, we need you to keep winning. The more you win, the more elite teams we have at the top of the conference, the better the chance we have at a college football playoff. Now, what some of you are saying is, well, didn't Utah go 5-7 last season? Like, how are we including? Didn't Texas Tech lose to Washington State? How are we including? And yes, I am adding teams into this that were not great last season. Iowa State got blown out in the Big 12 championship. They were not elite last season, but this year they have the inklings of it. Arizona State just lost. We just saw Baylor almost lose, by the way. We just saw Kansas lose. West Virginia lose to Ohio. Kansas State, who was supposed to be a contender, lose to Army. And I think if there's one team that could be fifth in the league that shocks you and me and everybody else, it's Houston, who I had preseason at 8-4. They're well on their way. Let's start here, though. The state of Utah. BYU's offense, and this goes back to something I've said a couple of times on this show, and I will stand by it again today. You can't ask for Aaron Roderick, the offensive coordinator, to be fired after a win. And I can't blame a 24-point victory on Aaron Roderick. But I wanted BYU's offense to do more. There were multiple analysts on the national level who said, I wish that Aaron Roderick would allow Bear Bachmeier to open the playbook up a bit more. Shehan Jayarasha of CBS Sports had the best take that I thought I saw all night about BYU. He says, want to see BYU open up the playbook for Bear Bachmeier a little bit, keeping him out of harm's way. But this is a great opportunity to test him against somewhat real competition. Aaron Roderick didn't actually do that. So 27-3 is great, but I thought BYU could have done more. 27-3 is still great enough for BYU to be in the contender category of the Big 12. Utah, 63-9. Now, Cal Poly is bad, not very good at all. But 63-9 against anybody showcases you aren't bad. It's not a fluke that Utah won and dominated UCLA last week. It's not that UCLA is a great football team, but it's not that Utah is a bad football team and got lucky. Devin Dampier, once again, looked incredible with his arm. I thought Devin Dampier did plenty enough to win this game, and they didn't have to throw the ball a ton. He didn't have to run the ball a ton for Utah to be effective. Those are shades with the offensive line and the way the defense played, once again, shades of a Big 12 championship caliber team. For Texas Tech, we again saw the Red Raiders 62-14. Their offense with Baron Morton, who is apparently indestructible, cannot be hurt. They were up 48-0 at halftime. The 14 points Kent State got, which I had the over, by the way, and that was very helpful for me for the money situation at FanDuel. The 14 points Kent State got were late. The rest of this game was dominance, both offensively and defensively. Texas Tech is squarely a contender in the Big 12. With Baron Morton healthy, namely, this is a team that could win the conference. And if we're talking BYU, Utah, Texas Tech as contenders, we can't forget Iowa State. I will get pretty quickly here in a couple minutes more into their win against Iowa and how big it was. First time in 6 home games they've won against the Hawkeyes. It looked hairy at first. You were up 13-3, I believe, and that's 13-13, and then there's a chance for Iowa to go win it. Iowa State finishes it out 16-13, takes the win. This is a gutsy home victory against a rivalry team. I think we our Big 12 championship runs through Texas Tech, Iowa State, and more importantly, the state of Utah, with Utah, the Utes, and BYU, the Cougars. That's what we've learned. Everybody else, I mean, Houston's in there, and I know UCF is undefeated, and there are a couple of Big 12 teams that are still hanging around. It's like, well, what if they could be something? Arizona hasn't lost yet, right? But I foresee us having these 4 or 5 schools be the schools at the end of the season. 2 weeks in, I'm pretty confident, and I was my preseason poll about all but Iowa State. I thought Iowa State would be a 7-5 team. They are not. They proved me completely wrong. The rest of them have proven that they are contenders, even in 2 games, more so contenders than most of this league. Coming up, let's go all the way in on Iowa State and their win, and Baylor and the Bears win as well against SMU. This is Locked On Big 12, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's show is brought to you by Supply House. Supply House is exactly where I went because I actually bought a house and was like, hey, I want to do the thing where I get to build equity. Supply House has over 280,000 parts, plumbing, HVAC, electrical items that you can trust from brands that are the biggest and best in the business. Their real-time inventory and honest lead times keep you from putting projects behind. Need parts for a project? Supply House has next day delivery. Talk about a game changer. Part finder tools, 3D schematics can save you hours on jobs where every detail matters. Join the free Trade Master program today and score serious perks like priority shipping, lower prices, and a dedicated support line. Visit supplyhouse.com to sign up for free. Use promo code SHCollege5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Real people, real service. Today's show is also brought to you by Game Time. Game Time is where I go to get my tickets for as cheap as possible, because with Game Time, I can go to the college football game that I prefer and buy tickets for as little as $25. That's right, $25. Big matchups, Power 4 games, Big 12 games. It's why I use Game Time. Pulled up the app, see that, oh, Kansas is playing so-and-so. I can go for $25 in a couple of days ahead. It's not like I had to buy tickets months in advance. I love their zone deals as well. Pick the section, Game Time picks the seats, and you save big. It's faster, cheaper, less stressful than any other way that I've bought tickets. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets. Create an account. Use code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, promo code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time and do it today with Game Time. 6 consecutive losses at home for Iowa State. The Baylor Bears had won 13 straight against SMU. They are down 38-24, the same score they lost to Auburn with. And both of these end up being wins for the Big 12. A team that cannot win at home against Iowa does just that against their rival. And a team that's down by 14 points and can't physically do the defense thing with a head coach whose entire MO is defense. Somehow, those end up being good for us. If you hit subscribe, I get to keep my job. I think back to last season, when non-conference things went really poorly for the Big 12, or 2 years ago when Iowa State was losing to group of 5 teams. This is a completely different feel. Let's start. The crazier of the two was certainly Baylor over SMU, and I'm going to divulge into that in a second. But let's really get into the nitty-gritty of Iowa State and Iowa. Once again, Iowa's offense is ass, like bad. They cannot throw the football. They can barely score in a football game, but their defense is good. That's what's going to keep them in games all year in the Big Ten. It's what kept them in this game overall, and it was 13-13 at one point late in the third quarter because Iowa State's inability to score in the second half against a very good Iowa defense. But the Gronowski kid, I try to tell you, and it doesn't take a genius. I don't have to be an expert analyst to know this. He's bad at football. 13 for 24 with a pick. Now, he ran the ball fine, but he threw for 83 yards against an Iowa State defense that looks better and better now 3 weeks into the season. I do believe they could still be at the top of my Big 12 power rankings come the end of this week because of what they did defensively. The offensive side of the ball, 14 first downs, not good. 238 total yards, not good. Overall, Iowa State was lackluster. The penalties weren't great. Third down, 8 for 15 because of short yardage third downs. That's a highlight in a bright spot. But the offense didn't show me anything, and you lose the time of possession battle as well. The offense did not show me anything for Iowa State that I'm writing home about. But what you have to understand, in the same way that when Ole Miss plays Kentucky under Lane Kiffin, for some reason, stuff goes weird. What you have to understand is that in these games, in these rivalry matchups, it might not always make sense. You might be a much better school, and you might be playing at home. And it doesn't always make sense, and it didn't make a ton of sense for Iowa State to play so close with an opponent that I think they are much better than. But it's what happened because of that word, rivalry. They stopped the run effectively, just 3.4 yards per carry for Iowa. That could not get it done. Obviously, they stopped the pass. And then if you look at Iowa State's offense, Rocco Beck was still 18 for 27. That's not terrible. The short yardage game is where Iowa State decided to go, aside from a play or two here or there. The longest pass of the game was 35 yards, a dot to Brett Eskelson. Outside of that, this was a ground control. Try to control the clock, which you did not do. Try to keep Iowa, even if they get 2 first downs, 3 first downs in a drive, try to keep Iowa from getting into the red zone or into field goal range. Force them to punt the ball in Iowa State territory. That's what the Cyclones were able to do. That's what spelled victory for a team that's now 3-0. And 3 quality wins. 2 Power 4 wins, one of them in Dublin, Ireland, the other one against an Iowa school that has the winningest Big Ten coach of all time, and they had not beaten Iowa at home in 6 different trips. You got the monkey off your back. And your other win is against a South Dakota team that's number 4 in the FCS, and you blew them out of the water. What the Cyclones are doing right now is winning. And all I'm asking the Cyclones to do is win. And as long as they're checking that box, we have no issues here. This is still one of the best teams in the Big 12, a formidable opponent for anyone, and I think that they legitimately could contend for the Big 12 title come the end of the year. Baylor SMU. The Bears. My alma mater. I don't even know where to. Sawyer Robertson? You'll have to remember when RG3 won the Heisman. Baylor wasn't elite. They won the Alamo Bowl that year, similar to how Travis Hunter played in the Alamo Bowl. He won the Heisman. That may be the case for Sawyer Robertson, but let's pull up his box score from this week. 34 for 50, 440 yards, 4 touchdowns. Last week against an SEC opponent, he threw for 425. He leads the country in passing yards. And there is a Big 12 quarterback named Sawyer Robertson, who may very well be in New York at the end of the season based off of his statistics that will be an anomaly in college football in a year where quarterbacks aren't that great. That's where Sawyer can make his bet. I haven't even got to like Josh Cameron, Ashton Hawkins, the way that the offense stepped up from a receiver standpoint when Michael Trigg wasn't getting the same receptions he was against Auburn when the tight end game wasn't working. That's incredible. But can we please give credit to the box score? And honestly, give a little bit of credit to SMU for helping be like, you know what? We tap. Baylor, whatever, you guys are good. The Bears only go 3 for 6 on 4th down, and their whole thing is getting 4th downs to help keep the game alive. That's kind of what Baylor's MO is and has been this season and will be under Dave Aranda the rest of his tenure. There's a point here down 14, by the way, in the 4th quarter where we are firing Dave Aranda, where it is a miracle if Baylor's going to come back and win this game and his job is on the line. He's 0-2, and Jake Spavital is putting up 30 points, 31 points, and they're still going to lose the game because Dave Aranda, the defensive genius Dave Aranda in the room with us right now. He's a ghost. He's not a thing. But when it matters the most, shout out. Champagne bottle in your hotel room, handshake and a hug to the SMU kicker. I'm watching the TV broadcast. Like, hey, the highest point scorer in SMU history. This kid is a legend. He'll never buy a beer again in Dallas because of how good he is. Buddy, you're buying all of Dallas their beers now. You just went from, yeah, well, I'm the kicker, to please don't recognize me in public. Just 3 missed field goals for SMU today that buried them in this game. If you had what Iowa State has, if you had what Baylor has, the Bears had a better kicking game than SMU, and Baylor's looking at a redshirt freshman that's trotting out there for every field goal. Then SMU wins this game, and they win this game by maybe 10. But they couldn't do that because they don't have the same kicker as Baylor. They don't have the same kicker as Iowa State. They couldn't find a way to get it done with special teams. And can I shout out Kyle Conradi? That's a guy who will never buy a beer again. If he's in like a 25-mile radius of Ames, Iowa, which I've been in, and everybody knows everybody, and the bars are good, and the chicken wings are good, and the cheese fries and the mozzarella sticks are great. Cheese sticks, as they call them. Conradi will never pay for anything again, and he shouldn't have to. 3 for 3 game winner against the Iowa Hawkeyes. It was 54 yards. He is once again the Hawkeye killer. If SMU has that, SMU wins this game. But instead, Baylor, they are buying non-alcoholic. They're buying O'Doul's Baptist School for the SMU kicker for being really, really bad. The over hits in this game. Baylor covers the 2.5. They were a play of the week for me, by the way. Iowa State was -3, was a play of the week. It's a push, so I'll give myself the victory. Baylor money line was a play of the week for me this week. I won a lot on FanDuel, by the way. This is a big start for the Big 12. This is a big start for the Big 12. We will talk at length later on here in a bit about how the rest of the day went in this conference. But for now, Baylor and Iowa State took care of business. That matters a lot in a conference that needs it right here on Locked On Big 12. Oh, today's show is brought to you by the Game Cap. The Game Cap, you can get your first hat for $16.99 when you use code Locked On at thegamecaps.com. Thegamecaps.com. Code Locked On, like less than $17 for a vintage hat. The quick question is, the best hat of all time at your school is probably worn in the 80s, the 90s. Yeah, the best hat. For me, the Game is where I go to get vintage styles that fans wore back in the day. Guess what? It's the same price as back in the day, $17. Locked On is your code, LOCKEDON. Go to thegamecaps.com. Grab your team's classic bar or retro circle design. Use code Locked On for an exclusive discount because legends wear the game. I cannot beat around the bush here. The Big 12 did not have a great day. Yeah. We can't escape what happened in some of these games. Let's start very briefly. 69-3. Must I pull up the stats in this game between Oregon and Oklahoma State? I want to get to Army. I want to get to West Virginia, and West Virginia will be a very big talking point in this video. But I cannot believe. Let's just do team stats. Let's go team stats between Oregon and Oklahoma State. 24 first downs for the Ducks, 9 for Oklahoma State. The yardage differential. Oregon rushed for 312 yards, 144 for the Cowboys. Mike Gundy's team threw for 67 passing yards, 319 for Oregon, 69-3 is past a bloodbath. It's past saying, is Mike Gundy still the answer? Is he still the guy? Is there a way he sticks around? This is something that everyone has to answer for. This is what we call in my industry bad. Kansas losing to Missouri. This was maybe the most valiant loss of the day. This was the one I thought, you know what? Yeah. Where like a BYU proved that they can win and they can win in a way that is clunky a bit, namely early, but they can still win. You say, hey, is there a loss you can point to and say the team still has potential? Kansas scored 31 on an SEC opponent. That I can't balk at. But then when you see what West Virginia did, and this is where I want to camp out for a second. I spent all offseason, man. I tried. I talked about Jaheim White being the guy, and 6 carries for 40 yards, 7 yards per carry is very good. The problem was once he got hurt, it felt like Nico Marchiol was not your guy. He was not the starting quarterback. He did not play at the caliber a Power 4 starting quarterback should. He did not play at the caliber a West Virginia quarterback who has legitimate experience playing in games should. And from there, when the momentum was stripped, the coaching staff, Rich Rodriguez and company, were unable to get back any of the moxie that I believed this team could carry into the season. 17 points. Can I tell you something? I think Ohio is one of the best teams in the MAC. And the MAC's not a bad conference. They are growing year in and year out as one of the better Group of 5 conferences. But just because Ohio is 17th, scored number 1 in the MAC, does not mean you should lose to them when they score 17. That's where I'm going here. Them scoring 17 is a good thing. Your defense did well. Anytime you hold an opponent in college football to 14 points, 17 points, 2 TDs, a field goal, that's good. And that's where I ask your offensive coordinator to do something. And for West Virginia, that something was nothing. I have really bad news for you. Teams lose players to injury. Teams lose their quarterback. Teams lose their starting running back. And it doesn't mean you can just punt the rest of the season and go 2 for 14 combined on 3rd and 4th down and think that's okay and think it's going to win you games. It does not mean that a MAC team can put up 429 total yards to your 250 and beat you in the time of possession 40 minutes and 15 seconds to 16 minutes and 40 seconds. That is abysmal. 72 rushing yards for West Virginia. That's bad. 178 passing yards. That's bad. And again, you allowed 429 yards. This is a note to Ren Baker, a note to Mac Rhodes at Baylor, a note to Kirby Hocutt at Texas Tech. This is a note to the entire Big 12. Just because it saves you money does not mean you go on the road against a Group of 5 team. Does not mean you go play at Ohio. Does not mean you go play at Miami of Ohio or at University of South Florida or Southern Florida, whatever they are. We must take notes that this cannot happen. Deeply disappointed in a West Virginia team that I thought would be a contender in the Big 12. You can't lose one player and excuse the rest of the season. Then, man, Sunday morning, she woke up fighting mad. When it rains, it pours. On a week where I had Houston picked as one of my picks of the week, right? I made a lot of money off Houston. Made a lot of money off UCF doing well, or even Colorado playing up to standard defensively, to Utah blowing out Cal Poly, to Texas Tech covering the over, I think, themselves. But here's Army and Kansas State. And this is where last week I mentioned a bit. It almost feels like you're babysitting pieces of this conference. Like, I'm upset with Arizona State, and I think it was stupid. There's no safety help. You're playing an SEC team, and we've already established they're going to be physical, they're going to be big, and we're going to have no safety help in the 2-minute drill. One corner, one wide receiver. That wide receiver outruns our corner, and guess what? Broken coverages happen. A receiver being physically better than a DB, that happens. But that's why. Do you know what the word safety means? Do you know why we call it that? Because it's the position that keeps everybody else. It's where we are safe because that man exists, and he didn't exist when Mississippi State beat Arizona State in an upset against a top 15 team and rushed the field. But none of that compares to the 10 points that Todd Monken's team at Army put up on Kansas State to win the game in the fourth quarter. 10 points. Just 13 first downs to the Wildcats. They were 2 for 9. 2 for 9 on 3rd down. And guess what? 6 for 7 on 4th down. That's what Army did. Guess what? Kansas State had 6 possessions. 6 You told me your quarterback was a Heisman caliber quarterback. Fire Matt Wells. If Avery Johnson is not the problem, fire Matt Wells. You lost to a team that lost to Tarleton State. And I know transitive property does not work in college football, but damn. I thought there was bad, then there was you. I watched this game like a fan, screaming at my TV. 40 minutes and 29 seconds of possession for Army, 19 minutes and 31 seconds for Kansas State. 19:31. Do you understand? This is the word I'll use. Inexcusable. I believe in Chris Kleiman. I like what Matt Wells is doing. I think that Avery Johnson's the answer. The defense is improved. None of those things. None of those things. No saving grace. No positive note. You may listen to the radio in Manhattan, Kansas. You may listen to a podcast, to a station, to a blog that writes about Kansas State, and that beat writer at the Kansas City Star may say there's still light at the end of the tunnel. There is not. There is not. Don't let them lie to you. Don't let them lie to you just because they think like, oh, if I write negatively about Kansas State, maybe their athletic department won't like me. Maybe Chris Kleiman won't let me interview the players. Let me be clear and honest with you. This is inexcusable. This is bad. This is irreparable on your season. You are 1-2, and your only win was a miracle against North Dakota. Someone has to answer for this. I open the entirety of my show happy, and I'm happy with the way that, the Baylor game ended up, the Iowa State game ended up. But man, I had to air some grievances. This is bad. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to do so. This has been and always will be Locked On Tomorrow Power Rankings. Thanks for making it your first listen every single day. Dose Grande.